The architecture technology program is really neat because the professors all have an experience in the field of architecture, and there's a lot of lab and studio time and not very much lecture. That's what I like about it.
Ferris's program has been built on getting students to learn the technical part of architecture. I mean, most architecture schools focus on the design side. We focus on being able to produce the documents to actually build the buildings. So it's a little different than the normal architecture school.
They work pretty intensively with computers, with CAD software, 2D and 3D software. In most of the studio classes that students use computers, they're working in some way with a real-world project.
Some of my favorite projects, probably the one that we're doing right now. There's a building, it's the Checkers building that's here on well, not off campus. It's being redesigned and being turned into a bank, and we get, I guess, to design our own versions of what we think the bank layout should be.
My favorite project was in the Design Fundamentals class. We got to design a two-dimensional pattern and then transfer it into three-dimension.
My favorite project was one I did for Johnson's class, and we were given a certain amount of square footage. We had to include specific rooms, bedrooms, bathrooms, etc.
So they get a lot of experience in actually building models three-dimensionally, electronic models. So they get a lot of hands-on experience.
I think one of the things that makes Ferris's program as good as it is that it's relatively small. We have a good group of really dedicated faculty, but we have a relatively small number of students, so we're able to work very closely with those students, and we really get to know them.
You got to be able to work with people and communicate. That's another important part of being, in architectural technology or in becoming an architect.
Architectural 246, that was a model making class. That was really fun because we got to make models in that, and we got to critique each other's. Some people's were good, some people's were wacky and creative, so they're both really fun. It's really creative stuff.
I like that you get to learn a lot of different aspects of architecture. Instead of just design, you get to learn about materials and structure and how to do the drawings as well.
We have had students enter the United States Green Building Council competition in the West Michigan region, and we've had several students who have won awards in those competitions over the last 2 or 3 years. We had students who, on their own, in their spare time, entered a chair design competition last year.
There was an American Institute of Architectural Students competition for a hotel design, and they had used Revit to design a kind of an interesting hotel.
I'd have to say like the structural classes, the statics classes, learning how a building goes together, because when you go to like big cities, you see huge structures like the new Dubai Tower. You kind of wonder how it's put together, and we get to learn about how they make things that are look impossible possible.
We're in a state of transition. Our 2-year program has recently been modified into a 4-year program. So starting in fall, our first students will be entering the Bachelor of Science in Architecture and Sustainability, which is a new degree program.
Students will have a good background in sustainability and green building and architecture, and they can add to that degree by transferring to another school. Like there's 4 accredited, NAB accredited architecture schools in the state of Michigan.
There are a large number of architects who are late in their careers and getting to retire, and those positions are going to need to be filled by a new generation of architects.
If you come to Ferris for architectural technology, you have a lot of different options for a career. After you graduate, you could work either in an architecture firm or you could go on and get another degree.
Our students do not become registered architects unless they go on and get more education. So it's kind of to train people to be technologists to work for an architect.
After I graduate with my associates in the spring, I plan to transfer to Kendall College of Arts and Design down in Grand Rapids for a bachelor's in interior design.
And I know a couple of other people are seeking jobs down there. There's a couple of companies that hire Ferris students specifically, such as Fishbeck and Innovative. So I guess I'm looking into contacting those people and hopefully getting an internship.
I've always known I wanted to go into architecture. I was always into like buildings and design, and I like to draw, so I always knew I wanted to come into it. I hope to get into a resort or a vacation place and do interior space planning.
Students who are at all interested in it should really dip their toes in the water and see what it's like, because it's a field that has an enormous potential.